microphone.
But the microphone goes
I never
with
got
it.
the microphone.
Yes. So,
Anyway, we
yes, we
continue.
can continue.
How to deal with that.
Mm. Let's see.
I mean, that police officer over
So,
there.
do you have,
South Country.
yes, on the,
Down there with Ratnasambhava.
Yeah. It's in the South Continent.
I'm gonna take your picture.
so do you have anything on the tip of your tongue? Everybody check. Carolyn.
So when you look at your mind,
Mm.
and is it like looking at air? Because air's there, and we all move within it.
What do you think?
I think it is. But it's inside, it's awareness, so it's not like air.
Inside of what?
Me, as far as I can tell.
Okay, and where's this me that you have an inside to?
Yeah, it's probably as far as I can see and project, as far as I know,
Is that your experience?
so far. I don't know how to experience outside of myself.
If your mind is inside, how can you connect with something outside?
Somehow the outside also maybe has some emanations of beingness, awareness.
And those
same-
come inside?
Sorry?
They come inside?
They meet somewhere. I don't really know where.
Yeah, we don't know where.
And that's okay. It's just,
Yeah.
No, it's not okay.
it's not. I'm
No.
sorry you're having that experience. I was having an experience of
It's not okay.
No, it's
No.
not okay because
okay.
we haven't, until we can answer the question of where, if we have the idea that there's something happening and there's something happening and somehow something else gets together,
Well, it's okay with me to have no idea.
it's not a
no
matter of
awareness.
whether it's okay with us, but it's just as a matter of
Business.
of how we look at things, and whether those are all things to look into until there's really clarity in your experience.
Well, I think I have clarity sometimes in my experience. Insofar as I know clarity, I have some clarity. I don't know if there's an absolute clarity beyond which I have yet to experience because of whatever, but I certainly prefer when I experience clarity. That has some meaning to me, that word.
Mm.
And it has meaning in terms of water, in terms of experiencing, in terms of other people appearing confused or not so confused, and therefore approaching clarity.
Mm.
But in an absolute way, I mean, I don't know absolute, what we are in a field of gravity. I guess they can construct fields of non-gravity for humans to experience. I haven't experienced that, but I've heard tales of it. Seems possible, interesting.
Fields of non-gravity.
I exist in a field of gravity. When
Mm.
people go to the moon, they're in less gravity. Or out in space, and we imagine space, like in the meditation of the elements, you imagine that, and I feel when I do that, that's different than air, different than water, fire, earth.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of those mind?
All, I think. I mean, I can't separate mind from non-mind, really.
And those elements are mind or
I
non-mind?
think they're mind. Everything is mind, really. I mean, I can't see a dividing line yet. I haven't had the experience of,
Mm.
oh, no mind. Well, a dead body has a different kind of liveliness, maggots eating it, but not the liveliness of a spirit in the squirrel moving, the squirrel aware. Now the squirrel dead.
Consciousness.
So yeah, squirrel consciousness seems not to be, but I still have, I'm perceiving, so I still have some kind of degree of mind.
But when you die, I'll just share something that helps me with the kind of exploration you're doing, and I hope it'll help. When we die, all those perceptions shut down. We're not going to see, hear, feel, taste, touch. You know that, okay? And yet,
I've heard about that.
I mean, you know, you experience those.
I experienced all the perceptions,
hear,
yes, and I experienced the dead body of a squirrel.
Yeah, and you
not
know
having
they're
that.
not, you can surmise they're not feeling,
Right, and my father's gone.
smelling,
Right.
tasting anymore. So those 5 senses are gone.
Correct.
Something, but it's not a total blank. Or you're not sure of that
I
yet?
don't know about that.
Okay, in Buddhist worldview, it's not a total blank.
Yeah, and I
Now,
find
you
that
don't have to accept that, but it's good to know it. It's good for us to know the Buddhist worldview philosophy and then and play with it, like fits what I see or not. If we don't even know it, then we're going to be,
Well, that's
we won't
knowing.
have a,
That's knowing in a kind of conceptual way.
well, right, but we need to know the concepts
I
of,
do know that concept.
okay, so you know that there will be.
I like that concept.
Yeah.
It's more than knowing it, I prefer it.
Okay, and the concept I'm talking about is that an immaterial, non-material, consciousness is non-material, so it's not earth, water, fire, wind. You know
But
that.
it might be space. The space
It's
is
not space, that's taught too. It's, space is used as an analogy, a metaphor, to help us move toward the experience. But mind is not space, and space is not mind. They are not the same.
okay.
It's just a stepping stone. This is how I've been taught and what I've read.
Have you had the experience of mind apart from?
Oh, I'm sure I have, and I'm sure I don't recognize it over and over. But,
But you think we do have it? It's just that we're not recognizing.
well, you're having the experience of mind right now.
I do think so.
I mean, we can't not have an experience of
Yeah.
mind. Even we die, the mind's not going to extinguish according to Buddhist teaching. Now, according to Western science, it extinguishes because it's brain. When brain dies. So I'm just saying it, for me, when I start thinking down this, meditating, contemplating down this road you're going, which is an important one. What's the mind? Where is it? What's it made up of? It helps me to first put my ground in there. Okay, mind is immaterial. It is awareness and clarity. Period. Not earth, not water, not fire, not these other things, not space. Then I can kind of go from there to the experience. But if I'm even
You
murky
can go
about
the other
that,
way too.
if I'm even murky about that, I'm apt to create experiences that are just more confusing. What do you mean go the other way? I'm
You
curious.
can go from the, without being introduced to any of the ideas about mind, or any teachings about awareness, or any teachings about materiality or non-materiality. One can go, and this is the direction I was heading with this morning's meditation, of any aspect of our experience can be the doorway into insight. Every moment of our experience actually has the raw material. There's nothing that needs to be added or subtracted. So then one of the things that I find, this is kind of apropos of the discussion we were having just before
In the break.
in the break. I find that when we do want to explain things, okay, so we do want to kind of understand things in an ordinary sense, and sometimes that's actually helpful, sometimes it's not, and particularly when we're kind of, I would say, prematurely mixing some kind of explanation with our experience, kind of taking a little taste of something and going, well, that would mean that this is this, or this is, I'll kind of refine my explanation for the cosmos in this way based on this little taste I've had here. And it's usually premature. It's almost always premature. That's not to say it's always such a bad idea, but it's good to know what we're doing when we do that. And to kind of just take the ideas that we come up with kind of lightly, and then to go back to the exploration, and the simpler we can be in the exploration, the fewer of the ideas. The ideas are only useful in the exploration in the same way that a map to the point where you can see the sunset is useful relative to the sunset. If it actually encourages you to, oh, it's possible to go someplace where you can actually see this. Okay, well, you get there. But once we get there, we've sort of arrived. We've been given a vantage point that the ideas have
Right.
sort of encouraged us to look, try this out, and then being very, very, very simple. And the usual problem in our meditation, particularly when we start moving into insight practice or the opening to that, is that we haven't yet seen how complicated we're making things. So even if it's just a matter of looking at the experience of the body and say, okay, take your experience to the experience of your hands, and then not even noticing that mixed with there's this kind of a mixing of my memory of what my hands look like and the actual tactile sensation. It's already kind of this kind of Trungpa uses this word psychosomatic. It's kind of this psychosomatic mix of stuff. We actually haven't really yet arrived at just being with the actual tactile sensation. It's mixed, and usually it's not even, we don't even stop with just mixing the tactile sensation with the mental image. It's, and my arthritis is acting up, and I used to be able, it's like the gates open at the beginning of the horse race, and if run around, all the horses are racing each other to get
We're
ahead.
always conceptual. It's quite hard for us to get away from conceptual, but what I've been noticing, the other place I help teach and here, is some folks, in order to avoid being conceptual, don't have the basic map, and then are murky, and then come to premature conclusions, which we all do. I like that premature conclusion. Or you said premature, and then I thought conclusion.
Yeah.
A premature conclusion. Mind is just like space. Okay, I got it. I look up in the sky. Okay, I get it. That's a premature conclusion. It's based on concepts. There might be some experience mixed in there, but the concept is confusing and hijacking the experience.
It's gained primacy.
It's what?
Gained primacy.
Yeah, the conceptual part gains primacy over and over and over and over. What does the Dalai Lama say? It's a great slogan. The profound loses out to the mundane. Yeah, yeah, the mundane always trumps the profound, and then the experience is gone, and instead of going, oh, maybe I should get a new pair of gloves, or oh, my hands are colder today because it's cold outside, and I'm no longer experiencing what this is, even not a hand, the not-handedness of this experience, which again is a concept. So it's a balancing act, and I'm so curious about this now, because I feel like from being here 2 years, after 15 years with Gelug, study, memorize text, which is really helpful for me, for my kind of mind. And now it's like, watch out for too much concept, experience. And just watching the need for the balance, If we go too fast to, well, I'm just going to experience, or we go, I really need to study a whole lot more, I think we can fall in ditches. And yet we have to, and I know I'm still learning about that, cherishing the experience, the BARE, B-A-R-E experience. Yeah.
I would like to ask you a question building on what you've been describing, which is, if in the Gelug tradition you start with the study, how does that keep you from just constantly prioritizing the conceptual? Because that is very much a habit for me to, oh, I've got a concept, great.
Yeah. Well, you don't just study. You serve, which gains a lot of merit, and you're serving the Dharma. You're building Dharma buildings and teaching Dharma, and then you also do intense contemplations on the cushion of the Four Immeasurables, the Sixth Perfection, Tonglen, all the mind training slogan. So you do a lot of contemplative meditation, and then you do some shamatha. But it's you shamatha more on like your deity and your deity practice. You shamatha on the Four Immeasurables, so rather than say your breath. So it's not like you're not doing it. But this is the big thing in Tibetan Buddhism. How do they accuse each other, the teachers, the teachers, especially the past, not now so much. Well, I don't know, in the monasteries in Asia, it could still be a huge debate. You're too conceptual. You're so conceptual, you're never going to have an experience. You go to the cave and think you've had experiences, but you're just making stuff up because you're so confused you've never looked at the map. And this is how they debate. And in that, I think more truth comes out of that kind of fire of the debate. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean,
The part that you said that sort of rang a little bell for me was when you said, the contemplation of the immeasurables, the six perfections,
Tonglen,
the
your
mind
deity.
training. That for me feels like a real bridge, because I can do those practices using my conceptual mind, but at the same time they are opening me to an experience that is different from what I would normally have and much more profound. So maybe
I wonder also, is there a softness that comes from those contemplations?
a
softness.
That's a good word for it. That kind of lets you let go of the conceptual a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, or make some kind of space. I think the space might come from the Mahayana motive in there for all beings. Then all of a sudden there's space, an experience, a concept, and an experience. But Lama Mike always says, and Bill points it out too over and over, we're so conceptual it's very hard to have a non-conceptual experience and recognize it. We have them, but to recognize it in any way. And the minute I recognize it, I go conceptual immediately. Oh, I'm having one. And now I'm not. Yeah. So it's
But
very,
that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
That's what it, but knowing that's the way it goes and kind of relaxing with it, and at first I think there's kind of a disappointment. It's kind of like
or frustration.
frustration. There's a little like, oh,
Concept bad.
bad, you know, there you go, having those conclusions again.
Which is another concept.
Yeah.
And a pleasure.
So it becomes kind of, but if you actually just sort of accept, oh, I see, this is the play. And there are two, the kinds of things that you're speaking about in terms of contemplation of the four immeasurables. This really does lean into the relative side of transformation. So you have we're really talking second turning. There's also the side of transformation, and that transformation has to do with stepping more and more outside of my agenda, the kind of the reference of my agenda, my concerns, my attachment, my aversion, and turning our attention to the benefit of others. That there's an aspect of transformation at the relative level that then does actually create some space, which supports also the other side of the transformation, which is more at the bringing in the ultimate, which is the side that the Heart Sutra form is emptiness, emptiness is form. To actually looking into the nature of that which arises in the stream of experience. And so that also loosens things up and supports the relative transformation too.
And I think that bridge in there, I had it and almost forgot it, is those practices, four immeasurables, six perfections, Tonglen, mind training, they lead us, they show us the truth of interdependence, especially Tonglen. You work Tonglen with the so-called other, and you really work it, and there's somewhere in that meditation, no self, no other, somewhere in there. And, or the opportunity to experience that is in there. And so I think that start to be the bridge from the relative practices, which have always a reference of me, which doesn't exist in the way the me thinks, and starts bridging towards that experience of emptiness, of inherent existence. Yeah. And I think that bridges the interdependence. You start experiencing the interdependence first on the cushion. Well, we experience it all day, but we block it, or the me gets big, or So, but it's good to nurture it on the cushion with those practices, the Mahayana practices. Did you have something?
Yeah, just to add, I think all that is perfect. But I would also add the piece that from in the Kagyu and probably Nyingma also kind of on the experiential point of approach, that the framework that you referred to, the map, it is there. We have it, and it's largely, I'd say, we find it when in descriptions of the view. Discussions of the view. So if we, or let's say nature of mind teachings, and we have, and so where you do run into a description, mind is like space. Mind is not, we don't say mind is space, we mind is like space. And that's something too, so we hear that, then we contemplate it, and see, why would they say that? And sort of look at mind and think about what, and look at the characteristics of space and work with that, and then, but it isn't space, because experience arises, and so now, and how is the experiencing mind different from the mind when it's still, and so all these things, but this kind of thing we refer to in bits and pieces in our Q&As and discussions and on retreats or something, but it's also presented very well in probably all the books on Mahamudra, but especially, let's say, Trungpa Rinpoche, or something that's from our lineage. So where they're introducing Mahamudra, and they'll talk about the view, and they'll talk about the nature of mind, and so those things we can use and we have to just go revisit those all the time, because at some moment, part of it will kind of, I just stretched, something just went a little further, I got something, and then, then you gotta go for a while and do all the other, your shine and your, all the other stuff, but you there's something that's dawned a little bit, and so then you read something like that again, or hear a teaching about it again, and then contemplate, practice, and then you get a little more sense of it. But it is important to have some sense of the qualities of the mind that are talked about. It's either you talk about appearance or awareness, and you can talk about emptiness, and how they're not really separate, but they are kind of qualities that you can detect, in a sense, or that you can, so you can puzzle over those things and say, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by emptiness? So you can read something about how to kind of get some glimpses of that, and then and say, but all this stuff happens, doesn't it? So empty isn't nothing. It's joined with all this stuff that appears, but all the stuff that appears is empty. What does that mean? So anyway, just there's a lot to work with there, but we do have tools. In the form of these books and teaching.
Has a map. I think one of the most useful parts of the map that we talk about over and over here is the three wisdoms. So what Dora's just talking about, those contemplations, like mind, space, awareness, clarity, appearance, emptiness, those are contemplations, and they're conceptual. And then, so the first one is study a little bit. That's hearing, there is a Buddhist worldview, it's like this, there is a view, of appearance, emptiness, knowing those things, kind of, I have them here in my pocket, I can pull them out and remember. And then contemplation, all the four immeasurables, the six perfections, what's the view, what's the mind, those are all contemplation. And then the dropping of all that and just experiencing whatever you're experiencing. And we need all three of those. It's just that different lineages kind of emphasize different parts. They don't disagree about the point that it must be experienced. The non-yet must be experienced. They all say that. Yalu, Nyingma, Kakyu, Sakya, everybody, So it's just, I think things develop because humans were really different. Someone loves to study and they're going to get in through that door. Someone else, that's just frightening and disgusting, and they're going to go through a different door. And that's fine, So we just go through the door, that works for us. And I just wanted to say one other thing about what Bill said about the sunset. I really liked that. You get the map that helps you get to the beach, but the experience of the sunset is not on the map. And that's really important. And yet, we look at an experience of a sunset, and we miss so much of it by contemplating. We suddenly are like, oh, it's not as good as yesterday. And there was that sunset in Hawaii, you know, and we're not there again.
Is it beautiful because of the pollution?
Yeah. We're just hijacked all the time. But as Bill said, just seeing that, oh yeah, conceptualization. And
Linda.
Yeah, so I just, I'm still such a beginner at this. And it's like this thing of experiencing something. What does experience feel like? How do I define an experience? How do I know when I'm experiencing something? And so I would make, when I would have an experience, then I would define, oh, I was having an experience, after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I remember the exact conversation I had with Lama Eric over in India, because I came out of Chan Riesig and I had this marvelous experience and wondering what it was, and I told him all about it, and he says, it was just an experience. Like I was making this big deal about it. And I remember that, and that made such a big impact on me. It's like, when I think I'm experiencing something, just a minute, this is just an experience. Just sit with it.
Yeah.
And it was just so helpful for me, so I just wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make myself be special, or, it's a special thing that I'm experiencing right now. And when I let go of that, my practice really dove in. Yeah.
It's always a special experience,
every experience.
every moment.
Yeah.
But we want to put it in 18-point type bold. Write some good copy. Sell some newspapers to ourselves.
Well, it's good to, how are you going?
Yeah, I was going to shift back to one thing. One thing I think to put a finer point on one thing we've said a couple of times. Well, there's the analogy of mind and space, and then we said, but space isn't mind. Well, it's better, I think, to say space isn't what we think it is.
Oh, yeah, I see, say it again.
Mind.
Space isn't what we think it is.
And mind isn't what we think it is.
Mind isn't what we think it is either.
So there we are.
So having that's because I'm drawn to think of the line in the Mahamudra prayer. Looking at objects, there is no object. One sees mind. And to the extent that we can objectify space, we also we've made it into an object. And the thing that's great about looking at our experience of space is that it starts to defy some of our ordinary ideas about an object that we might kind of get a handle on some way. So the more that we just see what the experience of space is, the more it helps us to drop away from kind of fixating on the stories about things. And that's where, when we get into talking about gravitational fields and these kinds of things, then it's I love thinking about all that kind of stuff, but it's starting to move away from the more direct exploration and meeting the ideas that we have about space, instead of, we said, just sort of investigate the experience. We're like, well, how is it that we experience any sense of space? Is it just kind of something visual? Space is what exists between what I think is me and what I see? Does it exist within? Do my sensations exist within space? What is the experience of this space around the sensations? Is there an experience of space within? So there are things that you can do to just start to look more clearly. And but all those exercises are like just being given a small map.
Mm-hmm.
Try this. Try looking in a little fresh way.
One that blows me away too, so that they go further to say that mind is like space with no center and no circumference.
Hmm.
Now, that whole thing of, you know, but there's surely a center, it all goes out from here, you know, it goes out from here,
And everyone finds the center.
and your center, and
That's
wow, no
pre-Copernicus.
center. And then, you know, well, as far as I can sense now, no circumference. So those things are awesome.
That's what Tilopa said to Naropa, find the center of space. That was one of his first meditation instructions.
Mm-hmm.
Find the center of space. So then Naropa moving around for a while with that, and came back and said, I can't find it. He said,
Not
okay,
under here."
find the four corners of space.
Oh, no.
Yeah, these were instructions
Yeah.
in the the Kagyu. And just those two are really quite good to remember. They just make you want to go. But the point is something Bill said. Let's see. Oh, you were guiding us through that very nice short meditation, and every so often the concepts get, this is my experience, they get kind of jujitsu'd, you know, like thrown, and then you get a ping. You know, a ping. I mean, there's no word for it, so make one up, ping pong or whatever. And it's so sharp because then concepts come in right away. And it's just seeing that, like, ooh, there was this kind of opening and something didn't happen. And then, oh, my concepts jumped on it. Said, oh, I had a ping. So it's just, you know, working that. One time, Lama Michael said to me when just remembered this from the first year retreat when I was doing this space and awareness and space and mind and Tilopa and Naropa's instruction. And I said to him, so give me one difference between space and mind. And he said, you know, he doesn't like to do that because he doesn't want to make more concepts. But he said, well, space is not aware. Think about that. Now, I don't know if he was saying that definitively or if he was just helping me get unstuck. But that also has been useful. Like, space, mind. Mind seems aware. The unobstructed space between here and that picture doesn't seem aware, but I don't know. You know? So, but it gives me another way to open. Like find the middle of space, find the four corners of space. Yeah, just gives us that moving toward the mystery.
The one that did that for me was the Padmasambhava, planted to save. He knew that disruptions would come, to save the teachings, he planted them in the mind stream.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, that just sort of,
Oh, really? He planted them in
The mind
the mind stream?
I read that somewhere. And
But
I
mind
think in the
streams don't
verse
have a
about-
the either.
Well, it doesn't
I mean, no,
matter.
I see what you're
Just was
saying.
sort
It
of
helps.
like, suddenly,
Yeah.
that was so against everything I've ever
Yeah,
been taught
that
or
gave you a
experienced. I
peek.
just was like, oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
You know, Trump poo, he ain't gonna know that.
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
past him.
it gives us a step toward that opening.
Oh, it seemed vast and
To the vast.
powerful.
It's back to the interdependence the-
Yeah,
of all of us, of all the
yeah,
times.
yeah.
Of all the times, right?
Yeah.
Beyond what
You
I
could even
think-
say interdependence beyond even us's.
Yes, yes,
Beyond even,
Us's.
the big river.
yes, no, yeah.
That's one of the things, interdependence is very good to contemplate. And with sort of just sort of as little knowledge as you need to kind of get started, and then to keep looking and looking. One piece that when I first heard about interdependence, I had the same map that you just described, the interdependence between us's, or, and then so it's like, okay, well, I've got the us thing over here and another us thing over here, so interdependence is kind of like this,
There's a line.
There, I've got this line, and since there's one here, and it's like, it's like, well, this is a really kind of cool map.
And my grandma was dead.
And yes, that's,
Yeah.
she's over here.
Yeah.
And then when we were at Lewis and Clark College with Booker Imshay, we walked to the Rose Garden. It was in June, and we were walking around the Rose Garden, and he was looking at the roses and really enjoying them, and then he was like reciting little offering prayers, kind of like to offer these, and then at some point he said, and I'm not sure if it was at that same time, but my memory kind of relies on that corner of it in his relationship to that, and then this thing that he said at another point, which was, to be skillful with interdependence. So if you know that somebody likes flowers, you use flowers.
Oh, nice.
So it's not like this geometric map. It's not like this spatial map with these kind of these things going in between. It's there's more aspects of resonance, and it's much more a dynamic play. And so that one. That's the kind of an example of it was helpful to start with this map, kind of the molecule stick model approach to it. That kind of I got some mileage out of that, and then adding this next piece, another piece to it, sort of then opened things up more. It keeps opening up.
You know what I'm struck with in that is his motivation is help them.
Mm-hmm.
Help them. So you may not be interested in flowers or food or whatever, but his whole motivation is that's going to help that person, so I'll use it. That's something I so am stuck on right now. I just want to do the stuff I want. That was back to our discussion. We were having a little discussion in the break, and I lost patience with someone talking about Dharma because I was so bored with her approach. And now I see that I got totally I want to do this a different way. And then I kind of bumped her verbally, not meaning to. I mean, my motivation was give some information, but I saw it really bumped her. And it was because I didn't join, like, she loves to talk about the cactus, so talk about the cactus and use it, Instead I was like, God, can we just go through a different door that I'm happier in, So that's good, I'm seeing that, and that's that Mahayana motivation. Like, it's not about being the smart one that shares information, it's meeting the person and seeing what would help them to improve their practice. So how skillful.
And it's a dynamic thing. It's not just them and their thing. We have to actually recognize kind of our own resonance.
Our own humanness. Yeah.
So if I know nothing about cactus and you have a PhD in cactus, I'm probably not going to get very far trying that.
Trying to do the cactus
Trying to
thing.
do the cactus thing. We're going to have to.
We have to find something else.
Yep.
It just made me think about the death and dying classes that we had, that I know a lot of you were at. And we talked about how when someone's dying, we can't just bring our own way of looking at things. If we want to bring them comfort, we have to be aware and in tune to what might bring them comfort. And it might not be my point of view or my way of looking at the world. So that's what I think about when you're talking and so forth. But, in a really practical way. Just, I guess, because I'm interested, how can I take all this? And, you talk about the Mahayana serving other people. So I asked myself, well, how can I take this and how can I incorporate it in my life? Not just on the cushion, but how do I do that? And it's not, it's not always easy. And one of the really concrete ways for me to think about it is, at death, when someone's dying and, or ill. I've had friends and family who aren't well, and how do I bring them comfort, without, inadvertently actually harming them more by bringing what I think is going to bring them comfort. And, and
Chicken soup to the vegetarian.
like that.
Or years ago, I was volunteering with hospice, and I was serving this older woman, and I didn't know her very well, and she was a very difficult person to connect with. And I don't think I was the first volunteer who had been sent to her. But one day in my glory, I love poetry. So I bring poetry, and I think, Mary Oliver, that's harmless. How can anyone not like Mary Oliver, That woman, oh my gosh, she detested me after that day. She really
Tested you?
Yeah,
I was
could
waiting
really-
for the great story.
No. It was totally the wrong thing to share with this woman.
Wow.
Like, I thought I was doing such good, and it was just the wrong thing. And I wasn't quick enough to pick up on that either,
Oh, gosh.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, I could tell you more, but I won't. But that's
Tortured her.
It was really so when you're but it was really me misseeing the situation,
But your motive was good.
My motive was good, but so I think that's what comes up for me when you're talking, is those classes
Yeah.
that were so wonderful.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm reminded of is you're talking about this is particularly at the time of death. There are kind of stages that we go through, that people go through, where you can't ask somebody a lot of questions. They might actually always love to have their opinion asked about something, but while they're actually dying, say, well, what do you think about this? There's certain kinds of things that are dissolving. So that's one of the challenges, is that if we've always, gone to Uncle Bob and said, well, how's the Red Sox doing?
Right.
But at a certain point, it doesn't work anymore. or we want to do certain kinds of things. And this, I think, is it's a good reason to really consider the three aspects of suffering, because our usual patterns will work when the dynamic is still there. Kind of the suffering of suffering. You know, can I get you a pillow? Can I do this? Can I do that? But there is the aspect, so helping in that way, or reading Mary Oliver to somebody who actually appreciates Mary Oliver, it can bring so that it resonates at that outer layer.
In that case, she was a fundamentalist Christian. You know, so it like clashed with her views.
She needed Jesus.
You know, so
Something,
sort
but
of-
there's a certain point where even her ability to articulate about that will kind of will sort of absorb.
Yeah.
And when if we really become familiar with our own patterns, deeper and deeper patterns of confusion, primordial anxiety or primordial stress, or how the most subtle levels, the more that we can actually tap into those and see how we're holding those and let go of those in our own stream, then we reach kind of a deeper level of commonality, kind of the engine that's underneath why I prefer this, which then makes me prefer this, and then causes me to have all these elaborations in my life. The things that are underneath that, going deeper and deeper, then we're not just stuck at the, well, Mary Oliver didn't work. You know, let's see. How about the Psalms? Well, actually, no. It's only New Testament that I like. It's like kind of trying to sort through everything on that level.
But a deeper connection.
A deeper connection, and then allowing something to unfold more directly from that, or just being able to be with somebody and to bring a certain kind of calm that relates to our own ability to look deeper like that. Then we're not sort of hung up with our own inability to figure out which kind of poetry somebody's going to respond to.
Yeah, that's probably what she really needed. She needed someone who could just come and let her be herself.
There are no guarantees in it, though.
No.
That's part of the thing about saying, well, you know, I don't do cactus, and you get the PhD in cactus. Maybe we don't have a huge overt way to do it.
Yeah.
Cynthia,
Oh, it's
Yeah.
time. Never mind.
Thank you all, and thank you. I hope it's been also beneficial for those at a distance as well.
By
this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is helpful, because if I find myself